or when creating prototypes for how a character of my video game could look. It was when I got introduced to generative adversarial networks. That I feel like is the tool that best represents what we're building.
It sounds like you're willing to take chances and about things you're passionate about.
That's even something that we use as a sort of metric for assessing the success of each tool that we release. I'm not trying to steal your idea, but if you want, we can keep going forward and see where this goes. And we did that, and they ended up flying us to Miami. Sometimes one of the hardest things of designs is to make things look simple. And I think that we're doing a very good job at that. And at that moment, it was one of the most advanced interfaces for using all the technology that existed in that moment. What we are seeing is that there's a lot of people that they pay for AI because AI is their hobby. It's like a reality TV show. You're like living with some other founders and with the investors, and it's non-stop. Like they have this term to define how it feels to be in that house during the 12 weeks, that they call it the container.
Welcome to Intelliverse. This is the podcast where we explore the fascinating world of generative AI. I'm your host, Heather Cooper, and today we have a very special guest. We're diving deep into the mind of a true innovator in the AI space. Our guest today is Victor Perez, and he's the co-founder and CEO of Krea AI. Welcome, Victor. How are you today?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm doing really good. Super excited to be here in your podcast. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming and taking that time to spend some time with us here. Can you share a little bit about your background in art and technology and how that led you to where you are today? You previously said you were a musician and that you had studied AV audiovisual in Spain. And how did that get you to where you're at today?
Sure. Yeah. So until I was not in university, I was not really into programming, or like I was not like the typical kid or like the typical guy that has been coding since 8 years old or something like that. During all my teenage years, I was interested in creative things, especially in music. I had a music band that we were doing alternative rock, and that was like all my teenage years. It was like focused on that band. And around the music, I was also like messing around with different things from photography, messing around with some 3D. I also love to do graffiti art, and I had like a lot of creative interest in general. At some point, I was in between going to the conservatory to study classic guitar in Barcelona or going to university and doing engineering. And like it was more of a kind of a decision for ensuring a professional career, so to say, that I decided to go to the engineering. And especially because I found this middle ground in this degree called Audiovisual Systems Engineering in Barcelona, that it was kind of the engineering and physics around sound and image. So they teach you how a microphone works, how stuff like MP3 encodes audio, how MP4 encodes images, encodes videos, etc. So that was pretty interesting. And so my planning was to go to the engineering, keep the guitar on the side, and after finishing engineering, go back to the guitar and like keep doing that. But when in my second year, I think it was that I got introduced to, like first I got like pretty interested in coding. I thought that it was pretty cool. It allows you to build things and you can be as creative as you want on the things that you build. So I love that about coding, that I could be like super creative with the things that I could create with it. It was like yet another kind of creative medium, especially with things like processing and some other frameworks that allow you to do very cool stuff. But the moment where it really clicked for me, and when I got like super deep into when I started to get like super deep into AI, it was when I got introduced to generative adversarial networks. And that happened like around the end of 2017 or 2018. And for those of you who never heard about what generative adversarial networks are, they are also commonly known as GANs. and they are like the OG. They're like the not the grandfather, because I would say that the grandfather is kind of a deep dream for doing like generative AI, but like the father of the future models, so to say. It was like some of the very early techniques to generate images with AI. So when I got introduced to that technology and I saw that you can have like synthetic brain that can
Yeah.
understand lots of things about images and that I could create my data sets with certain colors, certain shapes, certain things that I liked, put it into this mini intelligence and use it as a tool to express a certain idea and do it in a way that is so fast. And sometimes I got it to look very realistic that in that moment, I just became super, super interested in this technology and I've been obsessed with it since then. And yeah, during that time, first, I went more into the research side. So I ended up co-authoring some papers. After that, I was using the technology creatively, and I felt that coding and Python was limiting the creative things that I was able to do. Python is clearly not the best interface for using this technology creatively. So at that moment, I started to mess around and try to build interfaces to communicate with this AI to do artistic things. And I collaborated with Joel Simon from Artbreeder. That is one of the OG first creative tools that appeared with GAN in that moment. And there I was able to learn a lot and to try many different things, different interfaces, different stuff. Then I went by my own to something different that it was called Generative, that it was like yet another set of explorations on ways that we could interact the models that we had available for us back in that time. That it was mainly BQGAN, clipped, and some other techniques with like inverse Fourier transforms and some other stuff to generate images. And then after that, the very earliest versions of Krea appeared. We got the opportunity to enter into an accelerator program with one of these interfaces that it was called HFZero. And after that, we got our first funding. And since then, it's Diego and I, my co-founder and I, we just kept working in that particular direction of making very accessible and controllable tools for creatives to use AI.
HFZero, what was that like? It's a founder residency program. Is that the best way to describe it? Where for 12 weeks you are working, you have to be accepted into the program. And then you're with all these other people. You pitch them on your idea for the product. Is that how that works? And then while you're there, you're building it.
Yeah, it's very similar to other startup accelerators like Y Combinator, that is one of the most popular ones. The difference is that, for example, something like Y Combinator, they accept a ton of different startups, like 100 of them, if I'm not wrong. And they all have a partner assigned and a place where they can go work. But it's like a big group of founders, like all of them working on their startups, but each one has its own apartment, like they live around there to work. But essentially, like the
Oh,
difference with HFZero is that it's a very small group of founders. They do a very good job at really bringing some of the brightest people that you can imagine. I think that some of the smartest people that I've met, it has been through HFZero. And the main difference is that it is a small group and it's also all the founders living together during 12 weeks.
it's almost like a
So
reality TV
people,
show.
almost like a reality TV show. You're like living with some other founders and with the investors, and it's nonstop. Like they have this term to define how it feels to be in that house during the 12 weeks, that they call it the container. And they want you to get into the container and only focus on three things: on sleeping, doing exercise, and working. If you're doing something that is not one of these three things, you're not doing a successful work inside the container.
That's so interesting. I've heard of it, but for most people out there, yes, HF0, if you're accepted into this, it seems like you're set from that point on, basically, as long as you continue working on your particular startup, your particular brand that, or in this case, it was Krea, right?
Yeah.
So, like, what led you and your co-founder Diego to this idea to create Krea, to create a platform and this product, this tool?
So Krea, at the beginning, it was not called Krea. Actually, it had another name that it was Generative. And actually, we entered in HFZero with this other name that it was called Generative. And I think that it was not something. It was not like Diego and I sitting down and having this idea and going to HFZero to execute on this idea. It was more like I was working in Generative with another friend. His name is Javier. We were working in this on our part time, and we were like wanting to turn it into a startup. It was more like a part time thing more than something that we were doing full time. And I feel like when we got into HF0, we already had all this interface set up. And at that moment, it was one of the most advanced interfaces for using all the technology that existed in that moment. And it was not just an interface, we also had like a whole library that integrated all the different technologies that were available at that time to do text to image or image to image with artificial intelligence. So I think that one of the reasons why we're going to accept the to HF0 is because of having this product. And Diego entered into the team because he was the one that applied to HF0 with the stuff that we were building, which is also like a very fun story that we always like to tell. That Diego, at that moment, he was like obsessed with improving his writing skills and communication skills in general, right? So he was doing all sorts of weird shit. He was applying to be like a quant engineer when he didn't really know too much about that field. He applied to Stripe, where he actually got a job as a software intern with a very good salary, like very good terms. He got a job, and then he saw this post on Twitter by one of the founders of HFZero that he was talking about the program. And at that moment, it looked kind of scummy. They didn't have a fancy website. They didn't really have anything. They had like 1,000 followers on Twitter. So he decided, you know what, I'm going to apply to this. And it turns out that the week before that happened, he got COVID. And
Oh,
while he was in his house with COVID, he asked me, like, yo, could you send me a video recording of you building this library that I was doing for Generative so I can learn a little bit more about how everything works? And I was like, yeah, for sure. And I recorded myself for like, I don't know how many hours, like 6 or 7 hours straight, only coding and explaining everything, how it worked. So I sent it to him and he saw the entire video. And the week after or a few days after, he did the application for HFZero talking about this project of mine.
oh, and you didn't know that he was submitting that?
I didn't know.
Would you have
From
stopped him if you had known?
so no, hell no. Because like we really like we were super open to have funding and be able to focus full time on this. So Diego did the application. He ended up going to the next stage. And at that moment, he called me and he was like, yo, like I did this. I'm just doing this for practicing like communication skill. I'm not trying to steal your idea, but if you want, we can keep going forward and see where this goes.
Well,
And we
that
did that.
oh,
And they ended up flying us to Miami. And it was also like, we were like, before going to Miami, we were like, "Hmm, I don't know if this is actually legit or like or if this is all gonna be true, but like worst case scenario, we just like spend a week in Miami, we have a party, we see each other that we didn't see each other in a few months, you know. But yeah, but it was
still
also not something like Diego and I have known each other for like what 8 or 9 years already, and we've been working together already in many projects, like from hackathons to some companies that we also work together, and some other projects of ours that we were also very good friend, and we were working together in a bunch of things. When he applied and he decided to become like one of the founders of the project that we had at that time, it totally like the stars aligning almost. It was like the perfect month.
it's so inspirational for people to see that there's not necessarily going to be a straight path to where you're going to go, and you have to be willing to take some chances in order to see how it lands, basically. So thank you for sharing that. It's inspiring, and we often wait until everything is perfect or we know what's going to happen, but there's a lot of risk involved, right? With making your idea into a reality. It sounds like you're willing to take chances and about things you're passionate about. For our listeners who might be new to Krea, can you explain like what it is and how it works?
So Krea is a creative platform. We have different tools where you can generate from images to videos right now. And essentially, we focus on bringing the latest advancement in AI into tools that are intuitive and controllable that hopefully make creative people feel at home when they use this new creative medium that is AI. And essentially, we focus in these two things and in making it intuitive and making it controllable because AI, again, it's new for every single artist from every domain. It doesn't matter if you spend like 20 years being a 3D artist. You need to learn how to use this technology as if it was a new brush. You need to learn how to prompt. You need to learn how to play with certain knobs. And it's like a whole new set of skills that you need to learn. And we are like the first step before going to something like Comfy and something like some of these way more complex tools that are also extremely powerful. And we try to make it intuitive for that specific reason, to make sure that people can access in a very easy way. But then at the same time, we focus on controllability. So we focus a lot on the UX of the things that we build, because at the same time, we are dealing with creatives. We are dealing with people that are not just fine with having a certain image. They really want that image that they have in mind. They need to have control of the composition. They need to have control of lighting, and they need to be able to have the sense that the thing that they created belongs to them, and it's not just something that the AI generated for them, if that makes sense. Like, we really want to make AI feel like a tool more than something that does images for you.
Which tool do you think does the most to help people to have the level of control that people are most interested in with Krea?
I think that the real-time generation is definitely one of the pieces where you can see the most why we are building what we are building, because it changes so much when you have real-time interaction with an image model to generate an image. Like, it's crazy to see the new degrees of control that you get out of being able to change a color, for example, in real time, or to change a shape, or to, I don't know, even connect your iPad into Krea and start using the tools that you're already familiar with, enhanced with artificial intelligence. That, I feel like, is the tool that best represents what we're building. But at the same time, I think that as video models get a bit better, or as we release some new upgrades on the video model, the video tool will also become, I feel like, something similar. And as we get into real-time generations with video models, I think that the real-time tool is also going to get like a new level of control and of creative possibilities for having consistency with all the elements that you're generating.
I love how Krea is integrated with in the platform where if you have a video, for instance, if you generate a video in Krea Video, you can upscale it and without leaving and it goes right there from that same screen. And that's an amazing feature too, because there's so many different steps you have to take to make something. All these little tiny things that slow you down and slow down the creative process. So that's a wonderful thing too, I think, to have on the integration of these tools. But I wanted to ask you, because this is apparently the year of AI video and 3D, do you have plans to integrate or to include more features such as the music generation or voice generation?
Yeah, I feel like we have a mid to long term vision, but everything that we are doing on the short term happens in seeing what kinds of technologies are out there. For example, now I'm seeing a lot of these live portraits, and I think that they are really interesting. We may even do like some designs of how a tool for a live portrait could look like. And if we are happy or if we feel that they fit with an interesting workflow, we may even do a tool with that. So we're doing the same thing for music models. We're doing the same thing for voice models, etc. We're like always exploring every single domain because we do believe that going forward, we're going to have access to models that excel at every single domain, from image to video to 3D to audio, etc. So essentially, like any
Yeah.
tool that we can build in any of these formats is going to be relevant in the future too.
Who is your target audience, would you say?
Whoever has something to express visually or creatively, I don't know. It's like a very broad target. I would say that we can divide it in two. We can divide it in professionals and non-professionals. All of them are creatives, even if they have a creative background or not. I would say that from the professional side, we are seeing people coming from every creative industry, from film to marketing to architecture, to even gaming. They all found a part of their workflows where Krea can fit very well, especially when creating mood boards or when creating prototypes for how a character of my video game could look, or how could I get this image and mix it with another one to create a variation, or how could I get this low resolution image and turn it 4K. All of these users are professional users, and there's a lot of professional creatives coming to Krea because they are able to make some of their processes 10x faster. And then we have all the other half that I think that is as relevant as the other one, which are these creatives that they may not have a professional creative background, but they have a lot of creative interest, so to say. And these are people that maybe they have a day job that doesn't give them a lot of room to learn about creative tools or to have time to create something with Photoshop because they just don't have time because their life circumstances. And with things like Krea and AI in general, now they are able to express their creativity in just like 15 or 20 minutes. And that's bringing them a lot of joy and a lot of creative freedom. And in the same way that people buy cameras because they have photography as a hobby, what we are seeing is that there's a lot of people that they pay for AI because AI is their hobby. So the kind of target is like quite broad, all of them creatives, professionals, and non-professionals are as important to us.
You just described me in the second portion of your audience because I don't have that background. I'm a healthcare worker, been a pharmacist for a long time, and
Oh,
I still
I didn't
work
know
full
that.
time. Yeah, I work full time still. I didn't think that I would ever have the opportunity to make things like this, but tools like yours make it so that I don't have to figure out and learn. I still don't really know how to use Photoshop and a lot of tools like that. But I can go on there and I like to use different things and just learn something. For me, it's more the hobby, but I like to show other people. I want them to feel the joy that I feel. So
Yeah.
these types of tools are just, it's amazing because then it literally unlocks your creativity that you had and weren't able to express. So it's a wonderful thing. Oh, I wanted to ask you, what do you think sets Krea apart from other competitors, other platforms?
I will, the number one thing that I think that sets us apart is the taste that we put in everything that we do. And, but I think that taste can translate in different ways. But I think that it has a lot to do with how we can put ourselves in the mind of a creative and the way how we can have like certain ideas of certain workflows with AI that could exist. And then they end up fitting very well the way how a creative thinks about interacting with AI. But when I say this, it's more about like our tools looking delightful and like really feeling easy to use. Sometimes one of the hardest things of designs is to make things look simple. And I think that we're doing a very good job at that. I think that at this point, we have some of the best and more user friendly interfaces to access the latest technology in AI. And apart from that, I would also say that all the infrastructure that we have behind Krea, everything that we had to develop to have the models working on real time with all the performance that we have nowadays, having all these crazy large images being generated in just a few minutes being able to generate video, etc. in a way that allows us to execute extremely fast. I also think that's something very unique that we have. Everything is ready for us to have a new technology in our hands, and next week have an entire new tool ready for millions of users to use.
I became aware of Krea when the live generation dropped. Were you surprised at the response? Because people were trying to figure out how to get access and who could they call. Were you surprised at the response for that?
Yeah, totally. It was like we knew that it was cool, but we didn't know that it would go that crazy. I mean, in the end, like the real time tool started as a kind of creative project that we did for one of the Krea dinners here in our house in San Francisco. Normally in Krea, we work from Monday to Saturday, and on Sunday, we try to be very intentional on resting, on not touching the computer, not coding, going outside, touching grass, just like relax. So we are ready for the next week. But sometimes I cannot hold myself and I need to keep coding on Sundays. And that Sunday, I had an idea in mind. And that idea was like the new models, like the latent consistency models that they were just being released. And what I wanted to do, it was like a kind of a artistic kind of thing where I wanted to put a webcam on top of our TV, and I wanted to connect my computer to the TV and have something that could use these latent consistency models to turn people into whatever they typed on this interface in real time. So essentially, people were going in front of the camera, and if the prompt was, I don't know, like French baguettes, they were all turning into baguette, and it was extremely funny. I did that in like one morning, and in the afternoon, it was already working. There were still a lot of problems and a lot of hacks, but it was working. I was able to have the webcam, to have my computer, and people were coming and they were typing prompts and they were turning themselves into different things. That was super, super fun. And the day after, I was like, you know what? Like, maybe there's something here. So I just posted a recording of that extremely simple interface that it was not even running in production. It was running locally in my computer. But I just recorded that video where you could see like a text box and a prompt that I was writing, and an image was being created in real time. I posted it on Twitter, and that went like super viral. And then from there, we said, okay, let's build a tool. Let's make a real-time tool. In 1 week, it was essentially done and ready for production. And that's when we started with the waitlist. People started coming and they were like in love with kind of the interaction that we put in there.
Yeah, I noticed it then because I was kind of like, wait, I had never really seen Krea before, but that introduced me to it. And then it got me a little bit more interested in live generation and just seeing what else you have because there's a lot of other cool tools that are on the platform besides the video and enhance and upscaling and live gen. It just generating images. You have a canvas there that people can work with. There's training models. You have the logos with the designs where you can revamp your own logo or create a new one. There's a lot of really fun things for people to use. And you have a generous free tier too. So it's not just a paid plan. And there are plenty of things that people can do on the free plan. Do you think that helps with the community? And you have a lot of community support and within Discord and other channels. But throughout all that, have you seen anything like a surprise use case or the most unusual things that you have found from people using tools on the platform?
I mean, one of the crazy, you just need to go on the channel of Martin Nevelong. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
You know, every video of him is a surprise. Like
that's
every
true.
video
Yes.
that he posts using Krea, it is like insane. Like it's things that we would have not even imagined that you can do, like connecting PlayStation Dreams and starting to do almost like a video with AI strength super low, so it looks kind of consistent. And I don't know, like all the workflows that Martin is putting out there, they're always amazing, and a lot of the times are super surprising. Like, oh shit, didn't know that you could do it with Krea.
That's a cool thing because it's almost like once you release it into the wild, the community takes it and then they probably give you more ideas. And it's just wild how we're all in this petri dish and creating things every day. You don't know what you're going to find. And even while people are creating with it, they're finding new things to do. So I love that
Yeah.
aspect of
And
generative
then that
AI.
that's even something that we use as a sort of metric for assessing the success of each tool that we release. And the metric is kind of how, like, are the users better than us at using these tools? Yes or not? And if the answer is yes, that means that we have done a good job at doing this tool. If the answer is no, if you as a founder are like the expert at this tool that you have created, then you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, that's a very conscientious answer and also serving the consumer of your product. So thank you for putting that idea in my mind. I appreciate that. And I hope our
Mhm.
listeners do too. Well, I have a like fun segment that I wanted to introduce. It's called This or That. And in this
Mhm.
part of the show, I wanted to ask you a series of rapid fire 2 option questions, if you don't mind. I think it's a
Yeah,
great
sure.
way
Sounds fun.
for us to get to know you a little bit better on a personal level. And sometimes they can reveal some choices that are interesting about insights about how you think and make decisions. And it's fun. So, but
Sure.
I will go ahead and I'll just go start real fast, just 10 questions.
Okay,
Or
okay. I
else,
see.
are you a morning person or a night owl?
Morning.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Beach vacation or a mountain retreat?
Beats.
Would you prefer books or movies?
Movies.
No wrong answers either. So, dogs or cats? Would you prefer to cook or order in?
Order.
Are you a plan everything person or go with the flow?
Go with the flow.
Sci fi or fantasy?
Fantasy.
And last one, are you an early adopter or wait and see?
Early adopter or what?
Are you an early
Oh, wait
adopter
and
or
see. Oh
would you
no, early
rather wait and
adopter.
see? That's
Early
what I was
adopter.
thinking. Thank you. So thank you for humoring me. I appreciate it. It is fun to hear some of these answers.
Yeah, that's
But
so cool.
we covered a lot and you've talked about some of the features that you may have coming in the pipeline that what's coming up. And one question that I meant to ask you was how do you see AI creative tools like Krea changing the way we approach creative work in the future?
So the way how I see it is AI emerging as a new branch in the same way that 3D emerged years ago. And there's like a new way of creating visuals. I think that AI is like yet another branch that it's starting. And I think that for a few years, it will have its use cases. I don't think that it's going to entirely disrupt the way how someone works with Cinema 4D or the way how someone works with Photoshop. It's just a different tool. It's just like a tool for creating 3D themes, and it has like their use cases and all the workflows that already exist in there. Everything with Photoshop. I think that with AI, there's going to be like new workflows that are going to be super useful for certain parts of creative processes, and that essentially it will grow to something that feels like extremely immersive, and that feels like more like photography and videography than something like Photoshop or even like Cinema 4D. And it's going to be more about creating environments and taking snapshots of these environments, almost like if it was a video game where you can create like the entire world. But imagine that the entire world is super realistic and that you can walk around and take snapshots, control everything around you, and even like move things. I think that is going to develop into that. And I think that once we are at that point, entire new formats will appear, like entire new ways of doing movies, and even like entire new kinds of movies will appear. I think that are good, or something that I'm extremely excited about is like to have the creativity that you have in animes, where you have infinite possibilities on how the world looks, infinite possibilities on how characters move, etc. But you always have like the low quality, if you not low quality, but like animes. Like, there are some that integrate 3D and they do a lot of interesting stuff, but they normally don't look super realistic. So I think that it's going to be extremely interesting once we're able to have the creativity from the anime in extremely realistic movies. And I think that AI will allow for these kind of formats to emerge. Then similar things are going to happen with music, with images as well. And I think that at some point it may make Photoshop or some other tools irrelevant for lots of different workflows. But I think that no matter what, there will always be a creative behind each creation. The way that I like to think about jobs in the future is like when you think of how, the creator of Studio Ghibli, I think that his name is Miyazaki. Even like now with his 80 something years old, he still draws like the keyframes of the movies that he makes. But he has entire teams that their work is to draw the intermediate frames from the key ones that he made. And I think that in the future, no matter what, the most important thing is going to be that creative skill, like that taste, that person that is able to do the keyframe. And AI is going to be able to feel the remaining, all the rest that goes in between two keyframes. But like the number one
Sometimes even putting oh, go ahead. I apologize.
No,
This is
the number one skill is going to be creativity and, like deciding like what to do more than exactly mastering the craft of how to do it and getting to the pixel and like changing things.
Do you think more people with people that there's a lot of animosity towards AI, and do you think that more creative people who are pretty much against it right now are they starting to come around more where they can see uses for it, where it augments their workflow or helps them iterate ideas rather than replacing something that they're doing?
Yeah, I don't really know if that's a trend that is happening, but my intuition is that slowly, and especially with the work that companies like us are doing on making tooling around the technology, it's gonna they're gonna start slowly adopting and seeing it as an enhancer more than that's something that is replacing them. And when they start realizing that, I don't know, if they are illustrators and all their career have only been focused on illustration, and they realize that now they can express whatever idea they were expressing through illustration in any other format, from 3D to a video to another kind of images. I don't know. I think that it's pretty obvious that it's like increasing your creative possibilities and the ways how you can express those ideas. It's gonna be something that I feel like, yeah, it's gonna be something that is gonna be net positive in my opinion. Like a lot of people will need to change the ways
I
how they
hope
work,
so.
but essentially there's gonna be like a huge value.
That's true. That's a good point. I appreciate you coming and letting our listeners hear from you. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you taking the time to come out and just explain your background. It's very inspiring. I hope you'll come back in the future. Any last words that you'd like to let the listeners know? Anything else do you want to get off your
No,
chest or mention?
no, it's just like thank you so much. Also, like everybody here at Krea, we are big fans of everything that you're creating in your community, and in any way that we can help, we're super
Oh,
super happy
thank
to do
you.
so.
Thank you so much. Well, I appreciate it. Until next time, everyone, keep exploring and continue being creative. Have a creative week and take care.